Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
My hands were still sore from the retractor when my phone buzzed. I didn't even look at the screen. I knew it was Kara. I was 36, a trauma surgeon at Riverside Memorial in Columbus, and I'd just come off a 5-hour emergency X-lap that nearly tore the kid in half. We saved him. I collapsed on the staff room couch at 4:20 in the morning, shoes on, scrubs damp, brain running low. At 7:15, my phone rattled against the tile. I picked up. Kara's voice came through cold. Another all-nighter? No congrats. No, did they make it? Just that same tone I'd gotten used to, flat and sharp like a butter knife aimed right under the ribs. Yeah. Kid's stable, I said. Parents come in at 9. I'll debrief and then head home. She didn't say anything for a second. Then, you could try being married for a change. That one landed. No warning, no curve, just a direct hit. I'll be home after the meeting, I said. I'm walking to work, she snapped. We can't afford gas while you keep turning down gifts. And there it was. Again. My stance on that had always pissed her off more than the hours. I didn't take bribes. Patients' families sometimes tried. Cash, wine, restaurant cards, you name it. Especially after big saves. I always said no. Not because I thought I was better than anyone. I just didn't want to owe favors I didn't remember asking for. Let me ask you something. Share in the comments how's your day going and where are you joining from? And let's continue. Kara thought that was self-righteous. I thought it was clean. She ran a boutique salon, poured every dime back into it, and made it clear my paycheck had to cover everything else. Rent, food, car, utilities, random crap like dog-sitting fees for her sister's mutt. We fed the landlord before we fed us. Later that morning in the cafeteria, Derek, my closest friend since residency, slid into the seat across from me with a chocolate milk and said, "You're killing yourself to stay broke, man." That woman's not going to stick around. I told him we'd gotten married back when all we had was ramen and gas money. Money makes people weird, I added. He rolled his eyes. She's already weird. I walked home around 8 to 10 that night. No car left to take. I replayed every way the fight might go. My gut did that tight, sour roll it always did when I knew a round was coming. She'd be waiting by the kitchen counter, arms crossed. I'd be expected to defend myself like I hadn't just stitched a shredded spleen 6 hours ago. But the apartment was dark, quiet, empty, no Kara. I microwaved some noodles, let them sit too long, then ate them anyway. I didn't even turn the lights on, just stared at the flickering TV while my brain kept showing me that kid's tiny heart, pumping steady under my fingers. Should have felt like a win. All I felt was burned out and stupid. I passed out on top of the covers, one arm under the pillow, shoes still on. Sometime before dawn, the door opened. Not slammed. Opened. Careful. Deliberate. Cold air hit the room like a warning. I didn't move. I didn't have to. Before she even said a word, I knew. I knew the fuse was gone. The blow was coming. The door clicked shut behind her like the start of a countdown. Kara didn't look tired or guilty, just decided. She walked in like it was her place and her stage, even though she'd already packed up the better half of both. She put her tote on the chair like she was slamming down a file in court. Then she said, "I lied yesterday. I wasn't at a friend's. I was with someone. His name's Victor." Words stuck. My mouth opened and then didn't bother forming words. My jaw locked up so tight it clicked. I stood there, feet planted, arms down, brain blank. My hands, steady in surgery, felt like they didn't belong to me, just dead weight. "How long?" I asked. The words barely made it out. I hated how flat I sounded, but I couldn't pull up anything better. She looked me straight in the face and said, "A few months." Same tone you'd use to explain switching brands of cereal. Then she went into the speech I should have known was coming. "You're a decent man, Caleb, but a lousy husband. You're never home. You don't plan anything. No birthdays, no vacations, no flowers, nothing. I want attention. I want a life. Victor has both. She dropped my first name in there like a warning label. I let it stand. Not because I agreed with all of it, but because enough of it was true. I had worked too much. I missed every anniversary, her niece's 3rd birthday, even that stupid New Year's Eve party, where her cousin did that weird fire-breathing thing on the patio. I wasn't there for any of it. I was slicing into people's chests while my marriage cracked open without me. She said she was moving out that afternoon. I didn't beg. I didn't yell. I asked if she wanted coffee. She blinked, like she wasn't sure if she heard me right, then shook her head. She didn't want anything but my signature. She'd already printed out a no-contest divorce form and slid it across the counter like a diner bill. I picked up the pen. I didn't read it. I signed. It felt like the moment in surgery when anesthesia shouts, "We're crashing," and you just move. You don't think. You just cut or clamp or run. By noon, half the closet was bare. She took the copper-bottom pans, her curling wand, the throw blanket her aunt had crocheted. The velvet chair I always hated was gone, the framed photo from our wedding. She didn't take it, just left it face down on the dresser like she didn't want to look at either of us. When the door finally clicked shut again, I stood in the kitchen staring at the fridge. A half carton of eggs, expired cream, a bottle of mustard. That's all that was left. Derek called about 10 minutes later. "You gonna fight for her?" he asked. I rubbed my eyes and leaned against the counter. There's no fight left when she already packed the bag. He cussed loud enough I had to pull the phone back. Screw Victor. Seriously, who the hell cheats on a trauma surgeon working double shifts just to keep the lights on? I told him the worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was the quiet. The feeling of being in your own place and not recognizing the air. The silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like something had died and no one told me. That night I went back to work like nothing had happened. Slid into scrubs. Prepped. Sterilized. Took a spleen repair like it was personal. Stitched the wound like I was trying to punish it for tearing in the first place. Around 2 a.m, I washed up and stood at the sink, staring at my hands. They didn't shake. They never did. These were hands that had brought kids back from the brink. Hands that pushed in chest tubes blind in elevators. Hands that knew the exact pressure needed to crack a sternum without shattering it. So why the hell couldn't they hold together one stupid marriage? I got home after 4. The apartment smelled like her perfume and flattened cardboard. I stood in the doorway staring at the echo of her, the dent in the couch cushion, her mug still drying by the sink, the ghost of her hair stuck to the bathroom mirror. I found the wedding photo she'd left flipped down on the dresser. Picked it up, tossed it in a drawer without flipping it back over. I wasn't ready to look at it. Might never be. I laid down on the bed with my clothes still on. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes closed. Slept for 13 minutes. Then the pager went off, and I was on my feet like someone pulled a ripcord. There was no time to feel. No time to fall apart. The shift was calling. So was everything else I'd ignored while I was too busy pretending I could fix everything. I stayed in motion. That's how I dealt with it. Didn't go home, didn't call anyone, just checked the board, scrubbed in, wrote notes, cleared charts. I was on hour 23 when the trauma doors banged open around 10:30. EMS wheeled in a woman maybe late 40s, thrift store coat buttoned wrong, doubled over with sweat beading at her hairline. Gray skin, rapid pulse, obvious distress. The kind of patient you don't wait on. Britt wrinkled her nose like someone had brought roadkill through the front doors. "She doesn't belong on our floor," she muttered. "Then take it up with God," I said, already waving for a CT. "You see that abdomen?" "She's ours, Lacey," the new nurse, kept glancing at the woman's shoes, beat-up moccasins with duct tape on the sides, and whispered, "What about infection control? We follow isolation protocol. That's it. Nobody's dying in our hallway because their jacket cost $2. CT came back fast. Ruptured appendix, peritonitis already creeping up behind it. Textbook case, but messy as hell." I scrubbed in, called anesthesia, told the OR team it'd be tight and dirty. We were in and out in under an hour. I left a drain, irrigated twice, packed her carefully. It wasn't elegant, but it'd hold. When I signed off post-op, I asked admitting to finish her chart and get her ID in the system. They came back empty. No ID, no address, no insurance, no known contacts. She hadn't even given a last name. When she came to, I sat down at her bedside. She looked smaller than she had in the OR, small and braced, like she was waiting to be kicked. She sat with her back perfectly straight, hands folded like she was in a courtroom. "I'm Dr. Kane. You're in recovery. You came in with a ruptured appendix." She nodded once. No questions, no panic, just a tight, alert stare. "What's your name?" "Elise," she said, quiet but clear. "I used to live with a man named Colin. We weren't married. His daughter Harper didn't like me much. I didn't speak. Just let her keep going. When Colin got lung cancer, I stayed with him every day. I gave him the last of my savings to help with the meds. He died 3 months ago." She shifted slightly, like even the memory hurt. "After the funeral, Harper changed the locks. Threw my purse off the second-story balcony. Said it was her house now. She brought in this boyfriend, Miles. Big guy. Loud. Liked to prove things with his fists. Elise touched the side of her face like the memory still echoed there. I left wearing house shoes and a jacket I found in the laundry room. No ID, no money. Just gone." "You go to the police?" I asked. "They told me to leave the property or spend 15 days for trespassing. That was it." I looked at her chart. She had nothing. No medical record. No social. No address to discharge her to. That's the part people don't get. You don't have to be a junkie or a con to fall off the grid. You just need one bad month, one person who hates you, and a system that runs on clean paperwork. I kept her admitted under my authority. 2 days. That's the most I could justify without a psych hold or medical extension. I didn't call social work. Didn't call the admin. Just documented a post-op complication that gave me a reason to keep her warm and fed. I told Britt to treat her like any patient. Full meds, monitoring, vitals. The whole protocol. Britt rolled her eyes. I made a note in her record. Nonverbal judgmental behavior observed. Addressed privately. Because here's the truth. Eye rolls can scar just as deep as scalpels. Around lunch, I took the long route to the stairwell and sat on the steps with a bag of almonds I didn't want to eat. Derek found me there like he always did. The man has a sixth sense for when I'm trying to disappear. "You're going to take her home, aren't you?" he said, chewing half a protein bar like it owed him money. I didn't answer. He grinned. "You've got that face. The one where you're already picturing her sitting in your kitchen pretending not to cry into a bowl of soup." "Don't be a jackass," I said, but the smirk got under my skin and stuck there. That night, after rounds, I sat by Elise's bed. Her vitals were stable, drain output low, appetite slowly coming back. The window rattled with wind, and the monitor beeped a slow, steady rhythm. I stared at the line. Not her. She looked over at me without moving her head. "You have that look?" she said. "What look?" "The one people get when they're thinking too far ahead." I rubbed my hands together under the blanket of fluorescent light. "You came within inches," I said. "If you'd waited even another hour, it would have gone septic." She didn't flinch. I thought about waiting. "Why didn't you?" "I saw a man drop in the street outside the church near High and Broad. Nobody helped him. Not one person. Just stepped over him like he was a spilled bag of groceries. I thought, maybe I don't want to be that." I had nothing smart to add, just nodded. The silence filled the room like steam from an overboiled pot. I sat there longer than I should have. I told myself it was about vitals or chart notes or rechecking her drain. But that wasn't it. I kept looking at her and thinking how close she'd come to not being anybody's problem anymore, because she wouldn't be breathing. And that thought didn't just sit in my chest. It lodged there. The monitors hummed steady, but the air on the unit felt off. That kind of brittle tension you don't always catch unless you've been in enough places where things fall apart. Lacey flagged me near the supply room just before midnight. Dr. Kane, has Elise gotten her evening pain dose? She said she hasn't. I frowned. She should have. Check the chart. I did. Nothing signed after 1400. I asked Britt. She said she'd handle it. That flipped a switch in my chest. I walked straight to the medical station. Britt was there, typing half-heartedly into the MAR, like she wasn't trying very hard to look busy. Did Elise get her hydromorphone? I asked. She didn't even glance up. I'll get to it. No, when exactly? I said I'll get to it. I turned and walked to Elise's room. She wasn't in bed. The blankets were twisted off-center. I caught a flicker of movement behind the bathroom door and stepped in just as she sank to the floor. There was dried blood along her forearm and a cracked plastic razor beside the sink. Her eyes were open, glassy, but dry, and her mouth moved even though no sound came out at first. Then hoarse, "Why save me?" I dropped to my knees, grabbed gauze from the drawer, and pressed it down hard. Because that's what we do. Lacey followed protocol like she'd been doing it for years. Called the code, brought sedation, handled vitals. We stabilized her fast, stitched the cut, kept her under observation. But that look stayed in her face even when her eyes closed. It's a brutal question. Why save me when you don't have a clean answer? Some people pull you back just to let you drown again. That's not what I do. That's not who I am. I found Britt 10 minutes later by the elevator. She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her get a word in. You don't want to give someone their meds? Fine. Then document it. Flag it. Escalate it. But don't you ever sit on a dose and let a patient end up on the bathroom floor because you didn't feel like being decent for 2 minutes. I forgot, she said, shoulders stiff like she wanted to make it my fault she didn't care. No, I said. You didn't forget. You didn't think she mattered. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't have to, but my words cut like wire. Then I went to the chart and documented every damn thing. Time of missed dose, condition found, her vitals, my direct order, and the delay. I filled out the incident report before I cooled off enough to make excuses for anybody. It wasn't about punishment. It was about the line. Accountability's not revenge. It's a boundary. I tried to sleep in the on-call room, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elise walking into the night with her stitches splitting open, a cough turning septic, some beat cop telling her to move along while her blood pooled under a bus bench. That's how it happens. No sirens or headlines. Just a slow, invisible slide you miss until it's too late. At 6:40 in the morning, I walked into her room again. She was half awake, hooked to fluids, face pale, but calm. I stood there for a second, arms crossed, then said, "Look, I live alone. It's not a palace, but there's a clean bed in the spare room. You can stay a couple weeks, help keep the place decent. You don't owe me anything. We won't tell anybody." Her brow furrowed like she was trying to figure out the catch. Then she blinked fast and said, "You sure? Sure enough to write my address on the discharge packet." I sat at the nurse's station and logged everything properly. Discharged under my supervision, temporary housing support, follow-up scheduled. I cleared it with social work, signed a short-term aftercare agreement that technically made me her outpatient contact. That way, no one could claim she got cut loose into nowhere. I texted Derek while finishing my charting. "Do not lecture me." He replied with a thumbs up and a hot dog emoji. I stared at it for a second, shook my head, and moved on. Walking her to the exit felt surreal. Elise moved slow, hunched under her coat like she was still hiding. Her hospital bag was one of those reusable grocery totes, fraying at the handles. She didn't say much on the way down, just walked with her hands clutched in front like she was afraid someone might take back the offer before she made it out the door. We passed Britt near the admin desk. I didn't say anything. Elise didn't look at her. Outside, the air was sharp enough to sting your nose. January in Columbus cuts different when you've been watching death creep through someone's body for hours. I unlocked the car and popped the trunk so she could toss the bag in. "Your car smells like peppermint," she said. Better than dried blood, I answered. She gave a half smile. Not big, but it showed up. The drive to my place didn't take long, but the silence did. Elise kept glancing out the window like she expected the view to change. Like this might all turn out to be a long hallway she dreamed while on meds. At the apartment, I unlocked the door and said, "It's not fancy. Spare room's yours. Bathroom's to the left. Kitchen's open game. You see something needs cleaning. Clean it. You want to rest. Rest. I don't care." She stepped inside slow, eyes darting like she was scanning for exits. "I'll try not to be a burden," she said. "You're not," I said. "You're a person who didn't deserve what happened." That's all she nodded once. Then went to the spare room and shut the door with a quiet click. I stood in the hallway watching that door. Bringing a stranger home felt like swallowing a knife. Wrong in every protocol way, but right in every part of me that still remembered why I started this job in the first place. I told myself it was temporary, that it was just a patch, that I'd help her stabilize, get her documents back, move on. People lie to themselves all the time just to sleep. I wasn't better than anybody else. By the second morning, Elise had rearranged the spice rack, bleached the bathroom tile, and left a list on the counter titled, "This apartment has potential." She wasn't nesting. She was reclaiming space like someone who'd had it taken from her one too many times. The eggs she made that morning had red peppers, scallions, and something spicy I still can't name. I took a bite and froze mid-chew. I hadn't eaten a real meal cooked in my own kitchen in maybe a year. It hit different, like I'd been camping inside my own life without realizing it. I handed her $70 from my wallet later that day. "Groceries," I said. "Save receipts so I can reimburse." She actually laughed. "I used to track budgets for charity auctions in the six-figure range," she said, tucking the bills in her back pocket. "I think I can handle eggs and apples." That made me look at her a little closer. She was still thin, still healing. But the posture, the way she handled space, it was coming back. She wasn't used to being invisible. She'd been someone once, and not that long ago. Kara texted me a few days later out of nowhere. "I left my passport in the top drawer. Need to swing by?" Her tone read fake sweet, even over text. I replied, "I'm on nights. My aunt can let you in." It took 3 dots before she responded. "I didn't know you had an aunt." "New development," I wrote, then put the phone down and didn't check it again for hours. Kara showed up mid-afternoon. I'd warned Elise in the least awkward way I could. "Someone's coming by for a thing. Just let her in and don't ask questions." She opened the door with her usual calm. "Hi," she said. Kara blinked once, stepped inside, and Elise vanished into her room like smoke. Not fast, just clean. I figured they didn't know each other. That night, my phone blew up like a code alert. 9 missed calls, a string of texts. "Call me. Please. This is insane. I need to talk to you right now." I met Kara at a coffee shop the next morning. She was already at a table, stirring sugar into an empty cup like she was trying to hypnotize it. "She used to come into the salon," she said, not bothering with hello. "Elise, back when she was with that guy Colin. Daily blowouts, perfect nails, big tips. I thought she was one of those private school women who wear yoga pants and run boards." I sat down across from her. She looked rattled, like she'd seen a ghost with a better haircut. "She made people stand up straighter when she walked in," Kara added. "So what the hell happened?" I gave her the basic rundown. Colin, cancer, Harper, locks changed, no ID. She didn't interrupt, just kept shaking her head like the math wasn't adding up. "She was the kind of woman people assumed was safe," she said. "You don't think those women end up on the street?" "They don't," I said, "until they do." That night, I asked Elise straight out, "Did you know Kara before?" She was rinsing dishes, water running too hot, sleeves pushed back. Her hands paused mid-wipe. "I used to tip her $20 on a blowout," she said. "She always gave good scalp massages." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. Later that evening, She came out of her room holding my phone like she'd discovered a secret. "Colin bought a house once," she said. "Fixer-upper outside Worthington. Said he wanted a terrace and peach trees, even though peaches don't grow in Ohio. Harper hated it. Thought it was tacky. She pulled up a listing. Same house. Harper was selling it now. Ugly photos, outdated cabinets, a bathroom that looked like it hadn't seen bleach in years. But the price made me blink. "How much of a fixer-upper are we talking?" I asked. "Needs a roof. And probably a new foundation. Maybe a priest," she said. "But the bones are good." Colin loved it. I stared at the screen. I'd saved money over the years, enough for emergencies, a few slow months, a car that didn't sound like death around corners. This felt bigger than a rainy day. This felt like a thunderstorm with a shot at sunlight after. I showed the listing to Derek during our break. He skimmed it, looked at me and said, "You're thinking about buying a haunted-ass shack with a long-lost widow and a tragic backstory? Tell me again how you don't do drama." "I'm not playing savior," I said. "I'm thinking about taking a risk that doesn't end in a lawsuit." He took a bite of his protein bar and shrugged. "You already live in a haunted house, my guy." "It just has better plumbing," I couldn't argue with that. Back home, Elise made lentil soup and played jazz from some playlist that reminded me of diner booths and thunderstorms. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her stir the pot like she'd done it 1,000 times. She glanced over and said, "If you do this, the house, it's not for me." I raised an eyebrow. "No? It's for him. And maybe for you. But not for me." I thought about that for a second. Then nodded. "What if it could be for all of us?" She looked at me for a long beat, like she was trying to figure out if I meant it, or if I just didn't understand what all meant anymore. "I'll clean the place if you buy it," she said finally, "but I'm not doing any drywall." I smiled. "Deal." And just like that, something cracked open. I met Harper at the house on a Saturday morning so windy it felt like the siding might rip clean off. She stood on the cracked front step with arms folded, that trainer's posture locked tight, and kept rubbing her lower back like a warning light no one was paying attention to. "You're early," she said. "You sound surprised." She smirked without smiling and led me inside. The place smelled like pine sap and stale air. The dust was thick enough to write in, and the kitchen hadn't worked since Bush left office. Everything rattled underfoot. Drawer handles, floorboards, maybe even ghosts. She walked me through the hall, pointed out which walls were load-bearing and which ones were just in the way, showed me the closet where every leftover thing had been shoved. Half of it looked like Colin had meant to finish the job but ran out of time. Or breath. Out back, the tree line ran deep and dense. The wind pushed through them with a kind of voice, a low shushing that made the city seem 100 miles away. Harper pointed toward the shed. "That's full of rotted lumber and something raccoon-shaped I'm not opening." "Charming," I said. She turned, faced me square. "I can knock $3,000 off if you close by Wednesday. I need this done." I didn't blink. "Done." We were halfway back to the porch when I caught her wincing again. I stopped and tilted my head. "You ever seen a spine surgeon?" I asked. She narrowed her eyes. "No. Why?" "Your gait's crooked. You're favoring your left. L5S1 if I had to guess. Could be a disc." She laughed once, short and dry. "You diagnosing me in my driveway?" "I'm a trauma surgeon. I can diagnose you anywhere." Her face went pale. She didn't argue. Just asked for a referral. I texted Dr. Patel before I even got back in the car. She had the MRI Monday morning. Herniated disc, just like I'd said. Patel squeezed her in for a microdiscectomy the same week. Harper came out fine, relieved, humbled, and quiet in that honest way people get when their pain gets pulled out of them. She sent me a thank you text that was short but sincere. Didn't know how bad it was until it wasn't. I replied, "If you come across any of Elise's documents, bring them to the signing." No pressure, just the truth. The closing was fast. 11 minutes of signatures and scan pens. Harper slid a worn envelope across the table without meeting my eye. I found these in a box. I should have done this earlier. I took it without a word. Under the table, my hands shook. That evening, I drove Elise to the house. She sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded tight in her lap, staring at the trees like they were old friends she hadn't seen in years. The porch sagged. The beams were dark and solid. She stepped inside and stopped in the middle of the living room like she could still see Colin standing there with a tape measure and big plans. "He loved this plot," she whispered. "Said we'd grow peaches even though it's too cold." We walked through every room, dust kicking up behind our heels. I let her go ahead, let her have the space. In the main bedroom, there was a bent hook in the ceiling near the closet. I pulled it out of habit. A ladder dropped with a snap. The attic was cramped and hot, the air thick with time. In the corner sat a wooden chest, nothing fancy, padlocked with a cheap combo dial, the kind of thing you'd hide something real in, thinking no one would check there. We tried everything: birthdays, license plate numbers, Colin's old badge number. Nothing clicked. I made burgers while Elise kept guessing combinations in the attic like a woman on a mission. She came down frustrated, arms crossed. "What were Colin's passwords usually like?" I asked. She paused. "Mostly dumb ones. Our anniversary, the cat's name, or the day we met." I looked up. "When was that?" "May 12th, she said. "At the nursery." I was buying soil. He was cussing out a wheelbarrow. I rolled the numbers, 0512. The lock clicked. Inside, rings, loose stones wrapped in tissue, old jewelry tucked into a velvet pouch, and a letter. Folded. Thick-lined paper. Colin's handwriting like he wrote it with a bruised hand. "Elise, if I don't make it, this is yours. I couldn't keep it in the bank. Harper would fight you for it. Don't let her guilt you. Don't let her win." See, she read it once, then again. Her lips didn't move, but her chest shook. Then the tears came, slow and sharp like something cracking from the inside. I didn't touch her, didn't offer a shoulder or a word. Just stood there while she folded the letter and held it like it might disappear if she blinked. We closed the chest and drove straight to the bank. Safe deposit box, key in her name, contents documented and signed. Then to a notary, where we gave statements under oath about the letter and the chest and the intent. No loopholes, no drama later, no he said, she said, when it came time to move forward. Back at the apartment, she tried to hand me the whole win. Said it was mine for helping her stay alive, for buying the house, for giving her something like breath again. I stopped her. "I'll accept an investment. On paper. With equity. You get your share of whatever we build next. Nothing more. Nothing less. Don't get noble on me, Doc," she said, eyes red but fierce. "Nobility's cheap," I said. "Paperwork isn't." She smiled and didn't argue. That night, I lay down on my bed and felt the weight shift. The kind of shift you only notice when you've been carrying something so long you forgot it was there. The house wasn't fixed. The past wasn't gone. But the heartbeat was back. And so was mine. 2 weeks after the attic, I stopped by Kara's salon to grab Elise for lunch. She was covering the front desk while Kara ran color in the back. I hadn't made it past the waiting chairs when a woman walked in wearing oversized sunglasses and holding her forehead like it might fall off. "Wedding this weekend," she said. "Can you hide a disaster?" Elise looked at her for maybe 2 seconds before standing up. "You need a doctor, not a stylist," she said. "Come with me." She walked her to the break room, handed me a slip of paper and said, "Procedure room." Now, name on it was Nina Vale. I recognized it. Local anchor for WTVL, always signing off with that polite smirk, like she knew more than she was allowed to say. She had a knot above her eyebrow, angry and raised, skin flushed like it was about to burst. In the procedure room, she tried to downplay it. I bumped it on a cabinet. Not a big deal. It's not a bruise, I said. It's a boil. Same difference, right? Not if you want your wedding photos to look less like CSI stills. She held still the whole time I drained it. 28 minutes, 2 syringes, local anesthetic, pressure dressing. The room stayed quiet except for the hum of the light overhead and the monitor beep I always forget is even there. She didn't look away. She stared right into my face the whole time, unflinching, like watching my eyes helped her stay steady. When I walked out, Derek caught me smiling and gave me the look. You're grinning like a man who met a woman who didn't flinch when you held a scalpel. She's a patient, I said. Temporarily, he replied. Text her about her stitches tomorrow. See if she wants tacos. You don't text patients to ask them out. You text them to follow up. And then if the vibe's right, you pass the baton. Loophole medicine. The next day, I did it. Texted her to ask how the stitches felt. She replied with a photo of the bandage and a smiley face drawn on the gauze. It didn't feel creepy. It felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. I asked Derek to take over the follow-up, so I wasn't crossing any ethical lines. Then I asked her if she wanted tacos. She picked a hole-in-the-wall place near campus, walked in wearing jeans and a hoodie that said, "Mostly harmless." She told me about her last fiancé, jealous, controlling, charming in public, but cruel in the car ride home. I told her about Kara, about the marriage that gave me nothing but gray space and missed dinners. She listened without blinking, then raised a taco in mock salute. We were awkward for the first 15 minutes, then not at all. By the time the check came, she knew my middle name. I knew hers was Diane, which she hated. She told me her favorite movie was a low-budget horror flick about haunted furniture. I told her I once cracked a rib falling off a rolling stool during rounds. It was messy, loud, weird, and it felt good. That night I came home, dropped my keys in the bowl, and told Elise I might be in trouble. She didn't look up from her magazine. The bad kind or the good kind? The good kind, I said. I think. She just smirked and turned the page. While that was happening, Karma decided to knock. Victor, the stable, successful guy Kara had traded up for, got smacked with a tax mess big enough to make the local business feed. Something about unreported vendor income and phantom deductions. His mugshot didn't hit the papers, but the red ink did. Kara texted me at 11:42 that night. Can we talk? I typed. No. Deleted it. Then wrote, I'm glad you're okay. Hit send. That was my line. No more. No less. Nina pitched a segment series a few weeks later. Said she wanted to do something real on the hospital, the overnight shifts, what people don't see. I told her I don't do cameras. It's not about you, she said. It's about your team. The 3 a.m. crowd. The ghost hour. If I do it, Lacey's in. Britt's not, deal. I let her follow us through a couple night shifts. No glam, no filters, just controlled chaos and team hustle. Lacey crushed it. Britt's face was blurred per HR policy. She'd been reassigned to triage training after the incident, but you could still tell she was there. No one brought it up. The segment aired in late April. It didn't make me a hero, but it made me real. People started saying hi to me at gas stations. Someone paid for my coffee. A woman in line at CVS said her nephew survived a crash because I wasn't on vacation. At the regional press dinner in June, Nina won an award for the piece. Public service reporting. They called her up. She thanked her producer, her editor, and the doctor who doesn't like cameras but shows up anyway. I stood, walked to the stage like a guy walking into a code blue with no gloves, and pulled the ring out of my pocket. I said one sentence. Would you marry me? She said yes before I could run, before I even looked scared. Back at the table, Elise reached under the linen and squeezed my hand. Told you to stop dressing like an old man, she whispered. Derek toasted with seltzer because he was on call and responsible. The whole thing felt strange and sharp and perfect, like everything had finally lined up in the right order. A team that ran toward sirens, a woman who looked at scars without blinking, A house that still smelled like wood and promises. And me, still standing. The Thursday she came in, I was grabbing lunch from the taco truck 2 blocks from the hospital. Elise texted one word. Harper, no punctuation. That's how I knew it wasn't casual. Harper had shown up at Kara's salon with 2 inches of roots and the posture of someone holding her whole body together by thread. Elise told me later, she looked ready to throw her out until Harper said, "I'm sorry." And the air changed. They sat in the break room with paper cups, burned coffee, and nowhere to hide. Harper started with her dad, said she missed him, said she didn't know how to process losing someone she'd spent 10 years resenting and 10 months watching die. Said she thought Elise had options, had people, because she'd seen her with those rich bored types and figured she'd bounce back. And Miles, Harper said, he's working on himself. Gym 5 days a week, no drinking. He's calmer. Trying Elise didn't respond to that part, just let it hang in the air like laundry that wasn't hers to fold. Then Harper thanked me, by proxy, but still. I'd have limped into permanent damage, she said. You caught it in a hallway. Changed my whole year. I told her to keep stretching, told her doctor. Patel did the heavy lifting. She shook her head and said, "You could have said nothing." Some moments don't need applause. That was one of them. Later that night, I asked Elise if she told Harper about the attic, the chest, the letter. She looked at me flat. Not every truth is medicine. I nodded. She had a point. Some truths rip peace wide open just to prove they're honest. Sometimes silence is the strongest boundary you can draw. At the hospital, the incident report I filed after Britt's lapse didn't just sit in a drawer. It made ripples. The admin rolled out a pilot policy for unhoused patient admissions, short-term vouchers, social work kits, adjusted discharge timelines. Not a revolution, but a start. They also posted new guidance. Pain medication is not optional. Someone laminated it and stuck it on the medroom door. I didn't ask who. A week later, Britt asked to transfer. She caught me outside the locker room and said, "Community education's hiring. I think I'd be better there." I didn't smile, didn't pretend anything was fine. I said, "If you're serious, I'll write the recommendation." "I am," she said. "I messed up. I know, then I'll back you." One time, people don't always get better, but sometimes they get clearer. Lacey stepped up hard that month. Took over nights like she'd been born in fluorescent light. Trusted her judgment without double-checking her charting. That kind of trust is rare. Earned. She'd earned it. Meanwhile, Kara texted again. Victor's legal trouble had gone from embarrassing to serious. IRS subpoenas, accounts frozen, public statements that sounded like apologies written by a lawyer on painkillers. Kara's message came in at 9:10. "Hey, want to get coffee sometime?" I stared at the screen a while. Then I typed, "I hope you're safe." "I can't meet." Hit send. It felt like lifting a 100-pound weight I didn't know I'd still been carrying and setting it down in the right damn place. Nina was knee-deep in her follow-up segment by then. She'd recorded hours of interviews with caseworkers, nurses, outreach teams. She filmed my hands packing a discharge kit, hoodie, socks, travel-sized toothbrush, a bottle of shampoo that didn't smell like plastic regret. "You're not saying much," she told me off camera. "I'm not the story." She nodded. "Exactly." The piece aired during a slow Sunday news hour, right after a weather report and just before sports. Still, the calls came in. Not the dramatic kind, no parades or donation floods, just emails from people asking where to volunteer, who to call about vouchers, how to help without screwing it up. I watched myself on TV that night, sitting on the couch with Elise across from me, both of us half asleep from long shifts and bad posture. My hands looked steadier than I felt. My voice sounded like someone I almost recognized. I told Elise, "That guy finally looks like somebody I want to be." She didn't say anything for a second. Then, "He's not bad." Bit serious. Should smile more, I rolled my eyes. "He's working on it," she raised her mug. To progress. I tapped mine against hers. To progress. And maybe, for once, I actually meant it. We broke ground in late August. Demo crew showed up with machines that looked too big for the street. The neighbors leaned on porches and watched like they were waiting for ghosts to scream. Elise stood beside me, arms crossed, silent. She didn't speak until the back wall dropped in one violent crunch. Then she cried. Not the loud kind. The kind where your chest shakes and your lips press shut so tight you forget how to breathe. I put an arm around her and didn't say anything for a minute. Then I nodded toward the tree line. We keep that. And the front stepstone. She wiped her face with her sleeve. He built that step himself. Then we're not touching it. That was the deal. Nina and I picked floor plans we could afford without bleeding the bank accounts dry. One story. Open kitchen, double sinks that didn't feel like a luxury until I remembered how many years I went without them. Elise vetoed my lighting choices with a single, nope, before I could even finish the sentence. I showed her the brushed nickel chandelier. She raised one eyebrow and said, "What are we building, a steakhouse?" She wasn't wrong. A week into foundation work, Derek showed up with a 3-ring binder and the kind of grin that meant trouble. "It's time you stopped letting other people set your schedule," he said, dropping the binder on my counter like it was a bomb. Inside, a proposal, small private clinic, 1 operating room, 1 procedure room, honest billing, no upselling, no insurance games, just real care. "Your name, your hours," Nina said. "Our rules." I hesitated. Money had always felt like the slope that wrecked everything. My marriage, my peace, my ability to be home when it counted. "It's not about making it big," Nina said. "It's about control." Elise, sipping coffee in the doorway, added, "If you don't take this shot, you'll be back at the hospital at 70 with your shoulders trashed and a pager in your sock." She was right. We pulled from the chest, legally documented Elise's equity share. She wanted it that way, black and white, clean, no questions down the road. Derek handled HR, insurance codes, vendor negotiations, and the coffee machine I hated. I took fewer calls, focused on procedures that mattered, operated because I wanted to, not because I had to. The sign went up in November, Maple Ridge Surgical. It was simple. Steel letters, no font gimmicks, just clean truth. The first week we saw a kid with a broken arm who'd watched our TV segment with his grandma. A middle-aged guy with gallbladder pain and no insurance. 3 referrals from Harper's Gym. No billboard could have beat that. By the time the house was done, 6 months and too many change orders later, we moved in. Elise took the north bedroom, painted it herself, and ran the whole place like she'd been assigned a mission by the universe. Nina brought home a fiddle leaf fig and named it Alan. We still don't know why. The house wasn't fancy, but it breathed right. The walls didn't echo, the stove worked, the fridge didn't leak. For once, I walked in at night and didn't flinch at the silence. Still, I had one thing left to do. I drove back to the old apartment, empty now. The carpet had a divot where the couch used to sit, and the kitchen smelled like bleach and dust. I stood in the middle of the living room, hand on the back of my neck, and pictured the night I sat on that couch in cold scrubs, eating microwave noodles with the TV flickering in front of me. That guy thought he could outwork failure, thought he could stitch around loneliness, thought if he just kept going, the pain would stay behind him. I looked around one more time. Then I locked the door and walked to the office, dropped the key on the desk without saying a word. It felt like leaving a version of myself on the counter, quiet, overworked, and finally done. Derek and his wife came by for dinner just as the trees started blooming again. Early spring, soft wind, the smell of cut grass sneaking through the screen door. Elise had the oven going since 3. Roasted chicken, rosemary potatoes, lemon butter on green beans. Nina lit the tall white candles I always pretend to hate and always forget to blow out. The table looked like something out of a catalog. Except it wasn't. It was just ours. When the plates hit the table and the last chair scraped into place, I cleared my throat. Not for drama. just to find my voice. I'm not really a speech guy, I started. Derek raised his glass with a grin. No one asked for one. I know, I said, but you're getting one anyway. They laughed. Elise shook her head and set down the serving spoon like she didn't trust me to keep it short. I've sat at a lot of tables. Some in cafeterias, some in break rooms with paper plates, some alone with a fork and cold noodles. But this is the first time I've sat down in a house that felt like mine and didn't think about getting paged in the middle of the bite. Nina reached over and slid her fingers through mine, steady and warm. I looked at Elise. I've been thanked a lot in the past year. Patients, families, interns with shaky hands. But if you hadn't walked into our ER that day with nothing but pain and a coat 3 sizes too big, I don't know where I'd be. You kept me from going bitter. You gave me something to come home to. She wiped her eyes with a napkin and waved me off like I was overselling it, but she didn't argue. She never did when I told the truth. I looked at Derek next. This clinic only runs because you handle the parts I can't stand. HR, billing, forms I forget to sign. You're the engine. I just steer. He raised his glass again. And drink seltzer like a responsible surgeon. To Lacey, I added, our secret weapon. Nina leaned in. And what about me? I turned to her, hand still in mine. I don't deserve you. But I'm going to spend every day making sure you laugh anyway. She snorted. You're halfway there. That afternoon, Harper had texted us a baby photo. A tiny boy wrapped in a yellow blanket with eyes like Colin's. The message said, "Thank you for the second chance." We didn't reply. Didn't need to. That kind of gratitude doesn't come with an invoice. It's just a knot that got untied. Kara had texted a week before that. Can you recommend a surgeon for Victor? I typed, please contact scheduling. No sign-off, no apology, no opening left. Sometimes dignity is a door you learn to close quietly. After dessert, I stepped out onto the porch. Elise followed with a mug of tea. The candles flickered behind us, and the trees made that soft whisper they always did when the wind knew how to move them. We weren't rich, not in the way people meant when they said jewelry. Most of that chest had gone into boring things. Permits, secondhand equipment, support funds for patients who came in with a story and a scar. But we had enough. A clinic that didn't cheat. A house where no one yelled. A porch where Elise read the paper and Nina teased me about my old man shoes. And a fig tree named Alan that somehow refused to die. I used to think revenge meant making somebody pay. Now I think it means building something they never get to touch. I said goodnight to our friends, turned off the porch light and locked the door. Nina was waiting inside. Elise folded napkins with military precision. Derek finished the dishes like he owed us rent. I kept quiet and just breathed. Not every door opens when you pull. Some need a new key. Some need a second try. Some hide behind ladders and ceilings you forgot to look up at. I'm older now. Shoulders ache more. Pager doesn't go off anymore, but my instincts still wake me at 4 a.m. But I believe in the quiet win, in steady hands, in people who stay. That's enough. Did Caleb make the right call letting Elise stay? And who would you let into your home if it risked your peace? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd really like to hear your take. And if this story hit you hard, hit that subscribe button and stick around for more.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.